What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I know we are a worldwide community. I hope you're doing well. I'm glad that you're here. It is good that you're here. We got a lot to talk about. This is one of the most important sessions. I know saying that sounds a little funny. If you just look at the session we did yesterday morning, I mean, if you missed it, first of all, after you watched it, after you go ahead and subscribe below, and then after you wind up smashing the like button, watch this video after. It's so important for having that understanding across all markets. No matter what market you're interested in, they're all intertwined and interwoven. They breathe together. It's a living organism. It's the markets. And if you want to have the clearest understanding of where the market is right now, do watch this video. Now, I did make a highlight, the 8 minutes at the end that I spent on Bitcoin, because the technical analysis was worthy of its own upload. I thought at that particular time, a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen next on Bitcoin, as we were getting ready to perhaps break outside of this triangle, these blue lines that we put in. I put it in there. You know what? Probably, I didn't receive any feedback either, but probably in the future, I'm just going to do my best to outline each video with chapters so that people could go to the Bitcoin section on that particular video. And if there's a different upload, it'll be something new entirely to share. If you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel. Let me go ahead and actually add this video really quick to the 4-year playlist. It belongs on the Bitcoin playlist. It is essential watching over there. And then we're going to do it again today. Today is even more important because yesterday was just setting up what's happening today. We had the Fed meeting minutes, and how was the market reacting? Things all of a sudden have gone from like gradually to suddenly. The markets, whether it's the S&P 500, falling into some critical support over here. This is what set off the breakout and the next possible leg up. Are we being rejected already? Will we close below this line of support? And if we do, at that point, it looks like the markets are getting ready and set for a possible correction. Now, whether that's going to be slow and gradually to the downside, maybe throughout the summer, or that might be a little volatile, or even volatile both first to the downside, shaking out a lot of weak players in the market, like getting healthy again, and then a quick snap. We're going to have to pay close attention now that we're at these critical levels, because these could be potential trend changes over here. And it's not just here in the S&P 500 where it's very clear for us, right? Breaking down below this trend line, at that point, the bullish structure has left the market. We need to be very, very defensive and or playing to the short side over here, depending on what you think that's going to look like. There are the people who only buy the dips, right? S&P 500, a 5% correction, that takes us down about 200 S&P points. A 5%. It's really all we've seen going back for over a year. And then we have more of those 8-9% corrections. Of course, the crisis, 36%. Are we headed for something like that? Is there anything in the system right now potentially breaking down that's going to cause, first of all, a crisis and then a response from the Fed? What would that look in the stock market? And how will Bitcoin react if the stock market goes under pressure, right? And or we see some type of systematic crash, and why would that crash be occurring? Zero Hedge over here this morning. Oh, by the way, I have this up at the bottom of the screen. It said, could you remind me later at the end of the episode, right? Because I want to talk, it was just a reminder that we do want to give our thoughts here on what's going on with Ethereum and altcoins, whether or not they are resuming out of their corrections and setting up potential second alt season, and when that would occur. I'll give my opinion on that, but at the end, someone please remind me, and then we'll take a look at that. Sorry to keep that up there for so long on the screen. Listen, Zero Hedge, right? How many percent lower? Talking about the markets here, the stock market, before Fed replaces, the meeting minutes were released yesterday, thinking about tapering. Remember what happened at the FOMC press conference last week was when Powell said, or 2 weeks ago, Powell said, listen, all right, we're no longer not thinking about tapering. Now we're at least going to have the conversation. We'll think about tapering in the future. When that will that be sooner or later? That's what the market's wondering. That's what the market's repricing in. I think we're mid-cycle before the Fed starts tightening. I think it's going to be quite a while in the future. But will the market forces actually cause the Fed to tighten sooner. The market is playing with that right now. Or, if the S&P corrects over here another 5%, another 10%, right? 8-9% average S&P correction. What happens if it corrects more than that? Is the Fed's response going to be adding quantitative easing? Raoul Powell brought it up. We said that, listen, I think this is probably the clearest thinking I see. Why the market is looking for a potential rate hike in the future, right? Maybe that will be sooner in 2022. I personally think the Fed's next move is going to have to be more QE, actually increasing purchases. We'll see. We'll see, but we have to follow what price is doing. Right now, price is coming to a plate where it's, hold on, let me jump down to the 8-hour, where if we lose this support, we're seeing that bullish structure break down. We gotta plan and trade accordingly. It's a profit-taking level for a lot of people, right? Same thing on the Nasdaq. We were watching as we were into the support just last week, 16th of June, saying, no, the markets are not crashing. Head snack, the markets are not crashing. By the way, if you enjoy anything or this time together on this video, smash the like button. A replay crew, you are loud and strong. And when I say loud, I mean just very vocal. I feel very connected to y'all. It's awesome. Thank you for leaving those comments, sharing your stories. Definitely lots of love. Smash the like button, though. Help this channel, help more people get to see what's going on over here in this beautiful community that we share. Like no other. This really beautiful community that we share. I was thinking today, this morning before we went on live together, I'm thinking, what could I do today to be a better person? What could I do today to be a better person, to be a better version of myself, to help those around me, And, let's say, thank you for all making me a better person, though. We were watching this area of support. It wound up holding. We tested it one more time and are now testing it again. If we hold, you still holding and pushing your trade, right? What are the trades? That was coming out of these corrections. We set that up. You could go back, watch the videos over here, end of May, and then you go back and watch the end of March when the markets are actually correcting and we took positions out of it. Now we're over into the area of support. For a lot of people, this could be a place to take profits. It could be a wild summer. These next 2 weeks, the markets are moving right now. It's a very good atmosphere. We're at critical levels across the board. Even the dollar, right? The DXY, you could see, came into the neckline. It's so far being rejected by it, and relatively strong rejection of the neckline, the trend line, but of the inverse head and shoulders. If we break outside of here to the upside, it looks like the dollar is going to be strong. Now that's relative to what? To other fiat currency. This is a basket of fiat, the euro most heavily weighted, the yen, the pound. By the way, did you see the dollar is actually like at, I'm going to have to find it for you. But the dollar, I don't know if it's a 12-year low or since like 2002, like a 20-year low, that the dollars are making up a percentage of the world reserves. And the euro is the one kind of replacing the dollar. I don't know what's being traded in euros right now. I don't know if whether or not, well, I believe it's probably Europe and Russia probably transacting in energy in euros. Will there ever be a day where energy is transacted in Bitcoin, right? And would you see, as you see the dollars, in transaction currently trending down a little bit, but definitely 5% or so and downwards, yearly lows, and the euro starting to trend up, how rapidly would that take place for something like Bitcoin, which makes up the smallest part of all of that global reserve transactions, the smallest part? Could it rapidly increase? What would happen to the price of Bitcoin long term if that happens? The dollar, though, right now against other fiat has the potential here for a trend change, a big trend shift, right? So like, those holding on to their milkshakes for the last year and a half will be able to say, oh yeah, look, I was right. Maybe, potentially. That's a long time to be wrong in order to finally one day be right. But that's what we were setting up from the very beginning when we talked about that being wrongly positioned. When we said, listen, it's not okay just to continue to hold, no matter how long that is, a position is wrong, right? Only to turn correct again and be like, look, there it is. But we're watching. If we get this break of this neckline, we're looking for the dollar to firm up. Adversely, If it breaks below this dotted trend line, at that point, we're looking then for the dollar to trade sideways to down, potentially even testing. The trend line here should be acting as support, horizontal support down in that area as well. It's too soon, but we're getting close. And today, gold, right, is trading pretty strongly, and it's into an area of pretty decent resistance, one that we're tracking, right? $1,817, right? Is gold making a move over here as yields come off? It may be. It's still too soon for me to act. I think I'm going to be watching, though. We get above this resistance and what it looks like outside of this trend line to the upside. I think, gold has to still prove itself to me. It looks like it's on the move, and it's because we watched the breakdown of the 10-year, right? Again, this is when we flip positions finally, right? From getting on the right side and now say, oh, well, we got to follow what's happening over here, and that's a major breakdown on the 10-year, right? Just want to be on the right side of the trade as long as possible for as often as possible. And we have to make sure that happens right now, because if the S&P loses this area of support, right, if we wind up seeing a bigger correction as the market starts pricing in possible stagflation, which is pretty obvious, people's wages are not going up. But that's for a long time. That's not just like now in 2021 or in 2020. That's for a long time. So, but we are seeing prices rising. We are seeing inflation around us. And when you don't have people's wages rising and the prices around them are rising. By the way, did you see Janet Yellen? She's flip-flopped from saying there's not going to be, or the inflation's transitory. And now she's saying, listen, it's not really transitory. It's here to stay, but that's a good thing. At first she's telling us, listen, it's transitory. And now she's saying, listen, well, it's here. It's most likely here to stay. And that's a good thing. So you just have to keep paying attention, because you have people who watch, they read the Wall Street Journal. They read the cover of the journal. They don't read even the journal. They just read the cover. And on the cover, it says, Yellen says inflation's great. And they're like, oh, yeah, inflation's great. It's a good thing. Why? Oh, because I don't want to look into the fact that it's a hidden tax stealing from me and giving money, redistributing that money from me, right, to the wealthy elite. That's what it's doing. All right. What else? Bezos, right? He did great last year. Yeah, him and his wife, after they've split ways, are the world's richest man and women in the world. They have increased their net worth ever since the global lockdown by a factor of enormity, as others has. What happens to Bitcoin is the question I want to talk about with you. If we start seeing a breakdown in the stock markets, the VIX is picking up a little bit right now, as it should. It was a big move after the FOMC yesterday, right? Is it something that's going to level off now? And are we going to hold over here? Maybe even go sideways, consolidate sideways for a while? Are we going to come back down and test this trend line over here? This very important trend line, right? And if we break this trend line, at that point, we have a major problem with the structure of the S&P market, of the stock market that has been holding ever since we made the bottom back in March, April 2020. If that were to break, that's when we would be looking for a bigger correction. But that's a big move just into that support alone. Let's take a look over here into the trend line alone. We're looking. It's a big move. That's only 2% away. Oh my goodness. Things could unfold rapidly and things could unfold quickly. We're going to make sure that we're there over these days ahead to navigate it together. I wanted to say perfectly, as best as we can. As best as we can. I know that's going to be, as close to perfect as there is. Nasdaq over here on the verge of breaking down. Be careful. You exit the position on a close below this trend line, right? If you're initiating shorts, you're waiting for a retest and a resumption down. But you exit the position on the close of the trend line break. If you're not financial advice, nor is anything I share with you what I've learned over the past 20 years in the markets. I share with you my view on the markets, how I find clarity. And if that helps you, either confirm or say, no, I don't see it like that at all. And that really helped me clarify my own analysis. That's what we do here together. That's what we're for. Bitcoin could be under severe trouble, right? What do I mean by that? if we see a bigger correction in the stock market, if the stock market just trading down 2% loses, when I say stock market, I'm talking about the indexes. I'm talking about the S&P 500, and then I talk about the Nasdaq specifically when I talk about the Nasdaq. But nevertheless, the S&P 500, 2% into the important trend line, and then we have this line, the structure that we've been looking at ever since the middle of May. This line would need to break as well in order for us to be looking for a bigger, more pronounced move down, just for my own awareness, just so I understand what a 9% correction off the new all-time high is. It's putting us in the neighborhood of 4,000, more or less 4,000, the psychological end whole number. That's a place long term that might be a gift for a lot of people if something like that were to transpire and unfold. You have to ask yourself going forward, as I just told you, what's the next move out of the central banks? China, by the way, is on the cusp of about to ease further. 2 weeks ago, China was like, we need to put the brakes on. 3 weeks ago, and we pointed it out when it happened, and look what's happened in the market since they did that they felt the commodity prices were getting too far too quick, and they needed to do something to step in the way, right? That was the day that lumber crumbled, right? And now what are we looking at? They're like, wait a second, we're in a lot of trouble. And even the tech market overnight in China, under lots of pressure. It's the spillover right now into the U.S. markets. It's not so much that the U.S. markets are having these issues or problems right now, right? Could that progress as we continue with the reverse repo? And that's probably not an issue. The market's not really paying much attention to that, but you never know. You have to keep your eye on everything. And right now, this is presenting as Bitcoin's in a pretty fragile position, a pretty strong risk. Now, that being said, regardless of what happens here outside of any type of systematic pressure, systematic crash in the markets themselves, I do believe Bitcoin is going to be Bitcoin and do Bitcoin things. And what do I mean by that is that once we break the most important trend line in crypto, as we get to that third quarter 2021, which at point I always said that's when all correlations are really going to break. All correlations are really going to break. That aside, it could get ugly for a while if the markets start crashing, right? And even this morning, the markets are not crashing. We got the head stack meme. The markets are not crashing. I mean, I said the head stack. The only reason he included it in the song is because it's CTM strong all day long. And we're grateful for that. We love it. Listen, if you haven't seen head stack yet, here's your first taste. And listen to what he said. I'm going to stop it right when he says the markets are not crashing.
Markets, analyzing the charts, hitting projected targets within the margin. Find the flow, sip the matcha, and wait for the waves to come in with lobsters. The kind-hearted Jordan Fosters, working smarter, not harder to move the markers. On his way to conquer, trading and investing, drinking the coffee while reflecting on the blessing. The markets are not crashing. The prices might be slashing just to pretend they're in fashion. Hit the like button, comment, smash it.
Boom. The markets are not crashing. The prices might be slashing. That's what we're looking at right now. We're waiting and watching at all times if the markets do set up where they might actually be crashing. And if the markets are crashing, we're going to be there. But right now, they could be setting up. They could be topping over here, right? We're watching what happens as the markets react technically off of what the Fed has just done fundamentally. And we have to be like, right now, it could be July. It's the summer for a lot of people. And a lot of people, they're off doing summer things. And that's awesome. Life is wonderful. Like, life has to be lived to its fullest. You have to keep healthy, right? You have to be outside in nature as often as possible. You have to be taking care of yourself, eating well. You have to be getting sleep. You have to be kind. All these things are so important if you're going to be able to approach the markets and conquer them, right? Conquer the world, conquer thyself, conquer the markets. And don't think you're ever going to do that on your own. There's no way you can do that on your own. And I'm not saying just to help with those next to you over here in CTM, right? But, I'm talking about things much higher, way above our ways, So anyway, where are we right now? And what could that look like if the markets break down further? What Bitcoin's going to do Bitcoin things, no question about that. But right now, if the markets continue to take out important technical levels and the VIX will start to rise, and the reason the VIX will start rising is because volatility on the downside is coming in strong, right? These levels could get taken out quickly, right? Now, again, right now they're bullish, right? The bullish structure is in place until we lose this support. Don't get confused. I'm not saying the markets are going to correct or crash. I'm letting you know we're at a very important pivotal level across all markets, not just here in the S&P 500, also on the DXY, right? Not just on the DXY, the 10-year just broke down. We're seeing major shifts occur. What is the equity markets going to do next? Nasdaq too. If it holds, then it's a save and a butte. Do you ever play hockey, ice hockey? Like a quick save. Like it could happen, and we expect that's going to happen until this breaks. But nevertheless, you have to prepare yourself, especially if you're holding a position. You have to know when to manage your risk, and you have to have the plan, and you have to have the plan in place at all times and always ahead of time. So either which way, right? If we do see Bitcoin break down over here, I do believe we have this nice, beautiful area of support coming in around 29,500, right? It's coming in on 29,500, not just on this view, but also, let me just take that away 1 second. I wanted to talk about our greatest downside risk, what that could look like. But this trend line over here from the breakout of the first repair that we've actually looked for an entry, right? And then we had the resumption, and then another retest. This line is held twice so far, this trend line, and another resumption off, this time not taking out the swing high though. This time not taking out the swing high. We're coming back in. Now we're making lower lows. Are we going to test as far down as 29,500? It's a confluence of trend lines. There's a good chance if we test it, that's where the bulls are able to go ahead and they're able to mount a defense. If that breaks, at that point, we could be looking much further down, potentially all the way as far as right now is 25,500. It could happen. You could be looking look at this over here. Let me just draw this in for you, just so you can see, like, this is the area that we're trading within, right? Like anything like that would be like completely expected. So you have to be ready for it and you have to be prepared for it. Could we trade down lower than that if we started seeing some type of systematic pressures in the market? I mean, this is literally a house of cards. It's a house of cards, our financial system, but these money masters are extraordinary at the way they're able to manipulate it all together. They are truly masters at what they do. And as it's no coincidence that Powell met and meted with the people he did at what particular time he does, and then how the market reacts after remember, he wants the market to go up, right? And this was over here when Powell met with Yellen, right? Yellen and someone else, and then all of a sudden, boom, bounce up. Same thing happened in crypto. Listen, manipulation is real and it happens. It's your job to trade within that manipulation and profit from it. Not for you to use it as an excuse to blame your choices and the way that you reacted in the market conditions. It also is true that over here, it was on May the 11th that Powell met with the CEO of Coinbase in a closed meeting. When I say closed, I mean in person-to-person meeting. And then, we did see events unfold quickly thereafter. Was it a coincidence? Do the central banks support Bitcoin? Are they against it? What are their incentives? What are their motives? Obviously, we know at the end of the day, it seems to be all about the US dollar. It's a dollar story, king dollar. They're looking to do their best to keep their asset, right, the one that incentivizes them, in complete power. Now, whether Bitcoin helps that or hinders that, that will then determine at what point they decide to come against it. Right now, it's this. It's still nothing. The adoption of Bitcoin continues at a rapid pace. 2 years ago when we talked about you have to think of Bitcoin as technology and technology's adoption 2 years ago on this channel. This is why I'm going to go back slowly and get everything. I'm going to put it all into this outline over here. Right, currently Bitcoin is so early in the adoption phase, right? When was this video put out? Either which way. Right now, we're looking at the adoption curve of Bitcoin actually outpacing the adoption curve of the internet, right? And there's not even a billion users on Bitcoin yet. We're going there. We're going there quickly. I lost my train of thought, but I'm going to bring it back and tie it in really good, right? How am I going to do that? Bitcoin to the downside, right? Let me pull up to a bigger chart. I remember what it was like as I was positioned into my trade between $7,000 and $8,000 in 2019. I remember, presenting the bullish case for Bitcoin for all of you and continue during this particular period to dollar cost average and to accumulate Bitcoin, getting ready, front running the halving and the bull market. And then I remember the crisis in March. This was a big drawdown over here of Bitcoin. It was 63% from the swing high, and it unfolded quickly, right? Within about a month. It was a 63, but from the previous all-time high back in June 2019, it was a 73% drawdown, right? I guess at this point, if you held Bitcoin long enough, these current swings that we see, they're kindly meaningless to you. That does not mean that you do not want your overall trade to play out and to play out as quick and easy as possible. Everybody does. But listen, you have to understand, if you want to participate in the most important trade that matters, in the bull of all bulls, you have to understand that the volatility to the upside is absolutely massive, as well as the downside. It's a volatile asset, right? Could we see another 73% drawdown from the all-time high? Again, was that during a bear market? No, the bear market lasts about 12 months, by the way. And we've already saw capitulation before the March 2020 correction. A bear market generally lasts 12 months until you see capitulation. Capitulation is the cycle low. That's the bottom, right? From there up, it's up. So the bear market doesn't continue if price is appreciating. Well, last time it went from 3,200 to 14,000, in months. I wouldn't call that a bear market move. That's, accumulation low, repricing itself. Where are we right now? Could we have a 73% drawdown, and where would that take us? Always be are we going to see price take out the previous cycle all-time high of 19,400? Is it possible that price could take out? It's never done it before, right? But it is possible that price could trade below then the model would be different. What do I mean by that? Well, the model is just taking price and it's plotting it on a graph. So you have, this white line is the current cycle that we're in from the halving 2020, and it's just price. It's not that price follows the model. The model is price. So we just put up the price, right? And now, we align things, and we align things at different point, whether it's from the halving, from the new all-time high, from the mid-cycle dip to the current price action of the previous cycle. And then you take the previous cycles and you're doing the same thing. We're not, what all it is reflective of what's happening, right? Now, as it happens that this pattern is repeating itself, right? And it's repeating itself closely between every single cycle. Now, the model wasn't broken after this first cycle over here. And what is the model? Well, the model is the previous price behavior that we have. That's all we have to go off of past price. And just because price did something in the past, it doesn't mean it's going to do it in the future. But when we plot price and then we plot price again, from the halving, well, we see that, the model's not broken, meaning that price didn't repeat itself, right? But this is the model. Now we have two price points to line up. And now we have a third with the third cycle, and you line them all together. And then we do have what the mean was, whether you want to call it the projected path or the path of most probability. That's where it's the darkest green, right? Could we see that playing out? Well, right now, that's the expectation of what we'll see play out. And by the way, if this line, the white line, comes in showing diminishing returns and up to $160,000 and winds up being lower than this blue line, then this medium line is going to be moved over more towards the center and be covering this blue line a lot closer. Because at that point, what we'll have is that this new cycle, right, was underperforming the previous cycle, and we see the mean, the medium, now an average of all three cycles, putting us pretty much in the middle of the blue one. Now, I don't believe that's going to happen, but I'm just making my own speculation, my own I have my own ideas about what I believe is going to happen. And what I believe is going to happen, this dotted line, by the way, if this is the most important trend line in crypto. Ian right now is vacationing with his wife, celebrating their beautiful marriage. I hope you have a wonderful time. I hope that you get to see this while you're away with your beautiful bride. Thank you for all the hard work that you and Ian, Team Randall, continue to put forth here on the CTM model. So grateful, Ted, for all your time, for your talent, for your knowledge. To Ian, thank you so much for your accuracy, for your mind. Ian, Ted, you guys are great. And we have over here the most important trend line in crypto, right? For me, it's a matter of time when that breaks to the upside. I don't know when that's going to be. I do know when things became very unclear for myself, right? And I do know that, since then, while I'm not looking and trying to take trades to the downside or sell Bitcoin and I'm not even looking to hedge my Bitcoin position, right? What do I mean by that? Well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do at the top of the bull market. I'm not sure the different ways and strategies that I'm going to deploy. Even it's getting closer and closer and closer, and I'm still not 100% certain. But I will be before it happens. And at that point, I may be looking to take on a certain hedge. I think that might be, that way I'm not selling my Bitcoin. That way I'm going to figure it out. I'll share it with you. That's for sure. What I'm looking at right now is the possibility of the worst case scenario for Bitcoin. I believe that we hold here. I believe that, whether you call it the golden ratio, which it is, we saw the year of the bull misconfig, share that with us, the golden ratio that's held the previous two cycles. We've looked at that, other ways, 55% off of, that's the way we first looked at it. When price makes the new all-time high, 55% above that when price doesn't trade back below that, right? Could it happen? Yes, anything can happen. It's the markets. Do we look for what has happened and become the model to repeat itself? Yes, I look for it to repeat itself. I didn't think the halving's priced in. I thought that price was going to definitely see some type of supply shock as the miner's reward was cut in half. It's led to the bull market phase. What has happened since? Well, we've seen a country adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, right? So this is over here. This is pretty important. This is the fundamentals. A country adopted it. We saw two S&P 500. No, that's not true. Yeah, I don't even know where Microsoft trades. MicroStrategy trades. I assume on the Nasdaq. We saw two public companies take over $1 billion position in Bitcoin. That was unexpected. And we saw the hash rate the miners move out of China. The biggest argument for the bear case for Bitcoin has moved out. So we see all of the fundamentals really strong for Bitcoin, actually stronger than ever before, right? My price predictions have not been adjusted or changed, right? I'm still prepared, for $160,000 diminishing returns and $140,000 mission accomplished. The biggest signal of all, the Fed's balance sheet continues to expand. And we looked at that. We're up to $8 trillion now. We're on pace for $8.5 trillion by the end of the year. Adding another $1.4 trillion. Could they start lessening that? Yes. They could actually start tapering, not taking away, not tightening, but they could start tapering the degree of those purchases. And if that happens, how will the market react? We don't know. We're going to watch price. We're going to watch important levels. Is it true that the market could be like, okay, well, at the end of the day, the signal is global liquidity continues to expand. China just went back to easing. The Fed, how soon before they start talk about more easing instead of tightening? Are we going to inflate further? That's what the balance sheet's doing until we start seeing some type of problems. I'm going to assume that that's what the direction we continue. Do I think we could go lower than that? Do I think we could go lower than 17,500 on Bitcoin? I don't think that's going to happen. Listen, we looked at when the markets did crash, Bitcoin had a 63% drawdown. At that point, that could take us down all the way as low as $12,000. Could that happen? What would happen then? We had the system, a dollar liquidity crisis, and the whole globe was on lockdowns. Not only that, we had this liquidation loop occurring in BitMEX. Like traders kept getting liquidated and it kept causing price to get flushed downwards, and it stopped, right? Not when the Fed injected, $4.1 trillion. It stopped when BitMEX went offline. As soon as BitMEX went offline, price then started jumping up, right? What happened to BitMEX? Well, the US authorities came against them pretty strongly. Volume has greatly decreased from BitMEX, right? So we see the system continue to evolve and get stronger and stronger. And the bullish case for Bitcoin has never been stronger. It has never been stronger. And, I'm looking at price and I'm trying to look at it, from a pretty, let's say, high time preference. I'm looking to see what happens over the next, let's call it days and weeks, and even I follow it on the 8-hour time frame. Obviously, I'm looking at it as accurate as can be, as anyone can. We knew yesterday, that's why I put out the video in the afternoon, just like if we broke down outside of this to the downside, that we could expect downside pressure. And that's unfolding now. Price off 5% overnight, right? So we're pretty in step and in tune with the smaller price movements. But at the same time, you want to always have that greater and deeper perspective, right, of the most important trade that matters. What happens if we see some type of systematic crash in Bitcoin? Are you selling your Bitcoin? Most people at those particular moments, they don't have the let's say the ability, the luxury, to go ahead and really buy the dip. When I say a lot of retail traders, they're just all in at all times. And when you get those type of crashes, you can't really buy the dip. I remember myself over in 2020 during the crash over here, I had to actually send money to exchanges. It's all in cold storage, and it took time. It took a lot of time. You're talking about things located in different geographic locations. It's not something you do you just don't go onto an app and do it. It takes time, and then at that point though, listen, experts only. I don't recommend it for any of you unless you are an expert, and if you're an expert, and your trading accounts know that you're an expert as well, right? That's where the proof is right there. Look, trading lightly leveraged at that point, you're able to put a lot of, anyway, it worked out. It worked out really well. And will it always work out? It depends if you're managing your risk and how you're managing right now. I think we hold over here on Bitcoin, right? I think we hold this level over here. I think, yes, the worst case scenario would be us testing this trend line, this yellow trend line. And the reason I have it marked off, let me show you on the daily time frame. We traded below that when we had the capitulation, right? That dark Wednesday, we should call it. And then at that point, I said, you know what? I think that's the low. I'm not really sure. If we take out that low, though, what that means to me, that we're definitely into some type of further accumulation phase. This accumulation phase is lasting pretty long in itself already. It's kind of irrelevant if you break down or not. It's definitely played out as an accumulation phase. We have John Kay and a bunch of others tracking it really well over on Twitter, putting out phenomenal work. If you're interested in understanding more about those price movements, I was hoping or expecting it would be more of a low was put in and then price is able, to rebound off of it. I don't know when it's going to happen. When we break the most important trend line in crypto, that's when momentum has returned. At this point, I would have to say, because once price leveled out with these wicks, it tested this level once, twice, and 3 times. That for me is the place where the trend line belongs. I imagine that price has the potential to trade as low as that area, but I do think that would be the low. I don't think price would trade under that, and I don't think price actually trades, below the recent low over here. I think that we came in and we tested it. I think we're good, but I don't know. And if you're watching this and you're like, you don't know, of course you don't know. You can't predict price. You're not an oracle. There's no way I could predict price like that, right? What I'm doing is managing my risk off of important price levels, And what do I know on the upside, by the way? When is this looking healthy again? We've ran into a lot of trouble at that. I'm trying to put on the paintbrush over here. We ran into a lot of trouble in that area, right over there, right? right? Do we have to get above that? Yeah, not only that, we have a lot more. We have we have the midline over here. I have dot. We have a lot of resistance and a lot to work through before we break the most important trend line in crypto. And that's all we could say. If you want the best case scenario, and that what you want to focus in on is that, well, this is my model, this is our model, and this is what I think transpires. I think once we break the most important trend line in crypto, I think that we're going to be mirroring what has transpired in these past cycles, and it's going to see that price appreciation. Now, my question is, how far do we appreciate once we resume here second half? That's the question. I maintain all of my. I believe this is where we end up. In this area between 260,000 and $410,000. My goals are set up that if we reach 140, it's mission accomplished. But I'm going to try to make sure that I let price determine when I exit and why I exit, and take the most available fruit I collect. That's what I'm trying to do. Now, adversely, if something has changed and this was the top of the bull market, if the top of the 4-year cycle was down over here, right? And I mean, at that point, you're not even seeing diminishing returns. We would be seeing drastically reduced returns. Like if 65,000 was the top over here, and then we had, an 85% drawdown over the next 10 months. Why I say 10 months is because the average bear market, it lasts 12 months. If this topped in the middle of April, then we're looking at the capitulation approximately next April. Is that possible? I don't know how, anything's possible. I don't know how probable that is. That's not, listen, I don't believe that to be true. But if you do, then understand that you have potentially another 12 months, right? And a lot lower lows before this is able to go ahead and move. And what would you do if that was the case? Like, what would you do if you have to bring it back over here? That, listen, you have to be thinking long term. And one of your strategies, once you have this one strategy in place, it then opens the door for you to have multiple strategies in place. But if you're not taking care of the most important strategy, and first of all, you have to understand the bullish case for Bitcoin, right? You have to understand what is happening with the overall financial system and why TINA, there is no other alternative. And you have to be able to have such conviction that if the markets and the world seem to be melting down as they did in March 2020, right? That you have to be, have the conviction not only to hold, right? And I'm underwater here at that point. I'm way underwater. And so is like almost everyone, I mean, almost everyone. But you have everyone at this particular point in time, or 61% of the people that held Bitcoin for over 1 year, holding. The holding, right? Not only holding, adding and buying more. That's conviction. And if that happens again, and it could happen, well, I'm going to have the same exact conviction. And I'm going to do my best at that point to add more, the same way I did back in March 2020, right? Yeah, position in at 9,000 sounds good, but you had a 63% drawdown as that occurred. Either you're able to stomach it or you're not. And if you're not able to stomach it, honestly, then you shouldn't be invested. You shouldn't be invested. The stock market, although perhaps a little bit risky right now, as we are trading at the new, look, when the stock market corrects, where the risk reward at that point warrants perhaps an investment, if that's your thing, buying the indexes, technology, the Nasdaq. Look at this over here. Let me show you this. Oh, before I do, a big shout out to Gus and Truth Capital. Never average losses. I don't know who needs to hear this. I hope it's not anyone in CTM. I sincerely hope it's not anyone in CTM who has access to our strategy and principles, to working directly with myself, right? Never average lose. But if you need to hear this right now and you're watching this, if you average into your losers, you will never be a successful trader. You are going to lose your money. It's the most dangerous, detrimental thing that you could do. This is above, don't sell tops and don't buy bottoms, right? Bitcoin for your cycle aside, right? We look to buy the very bottom of the capitulation, right? Never average your losses. This is trading 101, absolutely essential. I wanted to show you this though, as we were talking about the Nasdaq, right? Here's MicroStrategy versus Bitcoin versus the Nasdaq, right? Why is MicroStrategy starting to outperform Bitcoin, and is it a better investment than Bitcoin, right? I mean, obviously, even with the Nasdaq, having a 30%, it's the 37% gain last year, they don't compete, right? We all know that Bitcoin and the Nasdaq don't compete. Why is MicroStrategy outperforming Bitcoin? Could it be because this is a leveraged play on Bitcoin? I don't know. They keep raising money, right? And they keep finding more creative ways to raise more money, and then they find more creative ways to have whatever they need balanced, so that they can even raise more money. So is it a leverage play on Bitcoin at this point and becoming one? It certainly looks like that. That's my guess. By the way, this is similar. The last time we gapped up here on MicroStrategy away from the price of Bitcoin, it was Bitcoin who caught up. Is that going to happen again? That's completely dependent on the price of Bitcoin. We all know that. If Bitcoin winds up crashing, obviously we're going to see MicroStrategy follow suit with it. It is correlated and dependent onto it. It looks to me as it's like a leverage play though. Is it make it a better investment? If public markets, anything could happen at any time. Do you prefer or owning some type of public company, who by the way could change the rules whenever they want, or now granted they have a history of when Michael did change the rules. He gave everyone the opportunity that wanted to sell stock to be able to get out and sell stock. He told them what they were going to do, how they were going to do it, why they were going to do it. He made the case and gave everyone the opportunity, but that stuff's all complicated, right? I mean, in my opinion, you all know that. And this is not like any type of recommendation. Actually, it's not. But for me, it's Bitcoin lightly leveraged. It outperforms everything. But you better understand how to use that leverage. Otherwise, you could wind up losing everything. For a lot of people, the volatility of just holding Bitcoin alone is way too volatile for them, right? You have to understand that. You have to understand before you get into any trade what your risk is, why you're making that risk, why you're taking that risk, and how you honor that. I was watching this podcast yesterday. I'm trying to find over here. It's Profit Maximalist. It's Preston Fish, and he's talking about the biggest risk, hidden market risk to the bull market. They talk about over here whether or not Michael Saylor could get some type of margin call on his position. What they I mean, that's not the biggest risk in the market to me. You all know that. Mine would be a systematic risk. It's what we spent the beginning of this episode looking at together and taking a look at those markets. Nevertheless, I'm finding the most interesting portions of it right here, 2343, bookmarking them for you so that tomorrow on 3056, so we could talk about it together, because it's good and it's important. What else did I want to look at over here? Listen, I'm not looking at this now with you, but as I say that, obviously I'm looking at that with you. We're looking at the 2-year multiplier. You all know I went ahead and added that to my log scale charts. As you come into the accumulation area, by the way, we're dead center right now. We're not coming towards that accumulation line. This is the 2-year moving average. The red one above it is the 2-year times 5, right? And then what you're looking at here is places of possible long-term sell zones. You can see we came right into that line. We didn't cross above it, but we came into it as resistance. I thought we were going to look more like this personally, 2017 bull market run, where we came back, pulled into it, and then came back above it. We've coming off quite significantly back into the lower mid portion of the range. That has happened before, right? Actually, it hasn't. In the double peak of 2013, look, we didn't come back as far as we have now. We maintain above the middle medium of this channel. Coming into the lower line, why that's an accumulation phase, price could come off significantly once it crosses to the downside and has in the past. It's about 40% further. right? It's a long way, 19,500, just to come back into where the 2-year moving average is. Could you imagine going 40% lower? Is it possible to trade somewhere around $12,000 Bitcoin? When I talk about lightly leveraged, right? Do you feel 9,000 is pretty safe liquidation level at this point going forward? And when would you move that up? Things to think about, things to consider. But anyway, I wanted to talk about altcoins and Ethereum and whether or not I think Ethereum over here is going to lead. I remember you didn't need to remind me on this time, but I'm sure some of you were definitely playing your part and willing to help, right? Let me talk about it briefly. I would like to talk about it with Ian's charts pulled up because Ian does the beautiful job of illustrating Ethereum, Bitcoin, past bull market cycle. Listen, alt season played out again exactly as we expected. When I say alt season played out as expected, it was over a year in advance, a year and a half in advance, talking about alt season when, by using past models, I expected alt season to happen. That was 6 months after the Bitcoin halving. Now, I gave my idea of why that might be happening. Maybe it's because Bitcoin's prices have, returned to new all-time highs, and there's a lot of speculation taking place as people feel like they missed out on Bitcoin. It's been like the thing forever about Bitcoin is people always feel that they missed out on Bitcoin, right? And is that right now at Bitcoin $32,469? Like right now, people like, I don't want to buy Bitcoin, right? Maybe some people, they don't have the opportunity to buy more Bitcoin. They're already all in. They understand the trade, right? But a lot of people are going to be more apt and willing and desiring to buy Bitcoin at 65,000 and 70,000 and are going to be forced in at higher prices than they are right now. Listen, it has been consulting past behavior that's helped me to understand, and it was right on time when this particular alt season was going to start, and then when it was going to get, and then when it was going to finish. And by the way, there's a video on the channel. I showed it for you a couple of weeks ago, where 4 days before the peak of Ethereum, I said, listen, this could be this week we could see the peak of the first alt season. And the only reason I was able to do that was consulting past price behavior. And now this alt season was off by a little bit, the peak of it, right? And you remember I kept saying something's not right, something's not off, something's not right, something's off. I don't know what it is, And because listen, these things don't rhyme. I mean, they do rhyme. They don't repeat. They're just like rhyming. And to get that nuance and to find it, well, there's nothing easy about it. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication. If I'm going off past behavior and models, what happens in this particular time is that Bitcoin versus Ethereum continues to outperform, but basically consolidating almost slightly, slowly sloping downward, as it is right now, by the way, as it is right now. Could that change? Yeah, that changes if Ethereum breaks out against Bitcoin over here. But if that doesn't happen, what played out in the last alt season was that this continues to play out until we get about to it was the period, the 60 days between the end of August and the 60 days before that. So the summer, you started seeing Bitcoin really at for I forget how many days. I have to look at it with the chart for you. We did this on the exit series, perhaps. I don't know if I think it might be 30 days. The 30 days of August, prior to the end of August, before Ethereum broke out hard versus Bitcoin and all alts did, they saw a big move, a lot of pressure from Bitcoin. So this unfolded slowly, and then all of a sudden there was a big move. Will that happen again? We don't know. Honestly, we don't know. As long as we're holding this trend line, that continues to be the expected case. When that happens and that breaks back above, that's your first indication that you were seeing Ethereum moving against Bitcoin. What about other alts? I haven't been following them. I don't know. If I look at perhaps some DeFi tokens versus Bitcoin, have they already broken outside of their correction? Maybe, if that's what you're following and you get the signal, in my opinion, you always take the signal because you're managing your risk very well. And if you get, if you get taken out, you take the stop loss, you manage your risk. The risk to reward is almost like infinitely greater to the upside if you're managing your risk correctly and you are catching the. Is it possible that these DeFi projects and tokens lead out, including Ethereum right now? Yeah, that's entirely probable. I mean, it's not. I don't want to say it's just possible. It's also probable. That's what occurs. You have to follow what happens technically. Is it possible that Ethereum catches up later? Listen, the timing on it, I expect it's going to be a while. I expect that actually Bitcoin is going to make that big move versus Ethereum that it did last cycle prior to things unfolding quickly. And then you see Ethereum. So many people will get hurt so hard, by the way, in so many different ways. And if we see the previous alt season play out as we did last year, and we see a lot of people that flipped into Ethereum, a lot of people sold their Bitcoin for Ethereum, and it was like at this level up here, right? Let's just call it 0.045. Right before the peak of alt season. Now there was a lot of room to the upside, where it was a big tradable event. But if you're still holding your position and you're still well into profit, if you come back down, that could become a problem where right before Ethereum spikes against Bitcoin, a lot of people actually cover their positions. Like that, for me, the easiest thing is holding throughout the cycle, right? That way I'm getting it right. I'm not getting whipsawed around. If you're trading too much, try trading less and making sure you're getting that trend. All right, so let me go ahead and play some Honeymoon vocals over here, and then I'm going to get ready. We have a training session coming up in about 28 minutes, FX session focused on Forex. Let me go ahead and play this Honeymoon and see what's going on. Yeah. So what are the odds that China basically, took off all this hash power offline in order to wait for the difficulty adjustment to go down and then put that hash power back on and present a 51% attack versus Bitcoin? Well, I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago as a possibility, but what are the odds that Russia is going to launch EMP attack versus the United States? Well, it's a possibility. Is that what we're going to see? And if China were to do that, by the way, if China is that scared of Bitcoin, what does that do for the bullish case of Bitcoin? Think about it. There's a lot of work by these intellectual giants before us, the true Bitcoiners, not of which is Richard Hart, but the true Bitcoiners, the OGs, and they've talked about what would happen if we have a 51% attack. Look into it. Be careful what you surround yourself with, right? Hexes, that's evil, right? Do not participate in evil. Be careful. Be careful about what you participate in. Yes, a lot, money could be made, money could be lost. Nevertheless, Be careful about who you are and who you surround yourself with. Always call upon protection of all the holy angels and saints, and make sure that you stay safe and protected. Careful, you know. Some people say Richard is intelligent. For what reason and why? But for what reason and why do you think that? Because he uses language that you're not really accustomed to. Because he's a master of psychology. Because he sits in a throne. He sits in a throne. Oh, okay. That could be perhaps a warning sign to some, right? Maybe not. Then the language used, like hexes and curses, right? What are hexes? What are curses? Our words are powerful and our words create. Just be careful, everyone. All right. Lots of love. And I'll see you all CTM in about 20 minutes on the inside.